DJ and PK, it's time to welcome in Cole Bagley, Utah Hockey Club insider for the Zone. Cole, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are we doing?
Good. Cole, aside from not getting the shutout, which I argue would have been a bad thing, that was the perfect script. Get the first goal. You could feel the crowd waiting for that. Get the lead. Never give up the lead. Now, the shutout would have been cool, but the fact Chicago scored twice, it got people on the edge of the seats late. There was some tension. And then you get the empty netter, you get the fifth goal, you win. That could you have written a better script?
No, I mean, it was the perfect home opener for the Utah Hockey Club. I mean, you got a little bit of everything. You know, Dylan Guenther scores the first goal in Utah Hockey Club history, which is just poetic based on the fact that he just signed another 8-year contract with the team. And, you know, the primary reason that Utah decided to ink him for that long was the fact that he could put the puck in the back of the net. And, so it was fantastic to see him score that first goal. And then Captain Keller gets in on the scoring sheet just a few minutes later, give him a 2-goal lead. I mean, we saw everything about this team that makes them who they are. And a shutout would have been nice, but it definitely made the game a little bit more interesting. And Chicago was pressing hard in the third period, especially coming down the stretch. They pulled their goaltender, and they had some pretty solid possession. Ingram had to make some pretty remarkable saves late, and he got some help from the post, which you don't always get. But I think the post was mostly his friend last night, and it made for just a really entertaining game. The Delta Center was buzzing all night long, especially after goals. And there was a fight that involved Sean Dursey that they got really into, and of course they showed their love to Spicy Tuna with some chants throughout the game. So I don't think Utah fans could have asked for much more in their first experience with the NHL.
Many years ago, I covered hockey down in the Los Angeles area, and for the Kings, there was a guy named Wayne Gretzky who was on the team. And if anybody got within 5 feet of him, somebody was going to get smacked. You couldn't touch him, right? He was off limits. And I thought of that when I saw Dursey do his thing up against the glass there. I think it was Keller, right? No one's going to be able to get near Keller. Do you see some similarities there? And I thought it was Dursey sticking up for one of the better, if not the best player on the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a common thing in the NHL, especially for your captain. And if your captain is not a particularly big guy like Keller is not, you're going to have some guys on the ice that are out there to protect him. I don't know that Dursey is necessarily the enforcer for this team. I would lean more towards maybe Liam O'Brien or Lawson Krause, but I don't think either of those guys were on the ice. And so, it was a dirty hit. Like, Keller didn't have the puck, and the Chicago player, let him have it. And that's a no-no. That's something that you don't do. And not only Dursey, but, Sergachev got over there really fast. I mean, most of the team surrounded him. And it was a big character moment from Sean Dursey, showing that, hey, you touch my captain, especially like that, you're going to have to go through me. And, the crowd really got into that, and he was hyping him up as he went off the ice to go and get his face fixed as he started bleeding. But that's hockey.
Aside from the score, did they pass the eye test to you? I mean, obviously they're trying to improve the defense here, and obviously the Blackhawks aren't the best opponent, so we can analyze one game to death. But if you go big picture, what kind of impression did it make on you? Yeah,
I thought their top two forward lines were remarkably good. Obviously both lines had 2 goals. And a big part of that is because they moved the puck really, really well inside the offensive zone. They were able to set up, and they all played to their strengths. The Cooley, Guenther, McBain line, they did exactly what they do best. Cooley is more of a speed type player with a lot of creativity and patience. Guenther is a guy that just can shoot it from anywhere and create dangerous scoring opportunities. And then McBain is a guy that brings the physicality, sets up in front of the net, and they did that perfectly. They nearly scored a couple more goals, and then that top line of have Keller, Hayton, and Schmaltz. Again, they did everything that you would want for them to do. Keller with his speed and his awareness, and then Hayton with his he gets in on the forecheck, and he's a guy that does a lot of the dirty work and wins pucks back. And then he had a tip in goal, and Schmaltz is a lot of what the other two guys are as well, and they just create great space, and it helped. I was able to ask couple of the guys, how much value does it add to this top line when you've got guys like Dursey and Sergachev on the blue line for you? And they said, it adds a ton. And we saw that last night. The goal that Hayton got was off an absolute blast of a slap shot from Sergachev, and it just helps because when you've got defensive players that are also offensive minded, it's just going to lift, the success of the team. So passing the eye test, I'd say for the most part, yes, there were a few concerns defensively. There were a few hiccups where guys were just not fulfilling their assignments. They struggled to clear the zone. They struggled to find the right passes. And so there's a few things they need to clean up, but Ingram was fantastic and bailed them out. So overall, a good first game, but that's one down and 81 more to go.
I think that the lack of perceived understanding by fans because we're new to this, I think that's overrated in the short term. I think you can go to the game and sort of figure out what's going on, at least to the point where you've got an idea. You may not be an expert by any stretch, but from your observation in the arena, being able to see and probably interact with some fans, what did you think about their overall knowledge of the game?
Yeah, it was a full sellout. There was over 16,000 people in there, and I was pretty impressed. They knew when to cheer, they knew when to get excited. They knew when to bring the energy and to, like you said, I mean, it's a complex sport, but at the same time, it's really not. It's about putting the puck in the net more than your opponent, and so there's a lot of simplicity to it, and yeah, just through key moments. The fans were able to get into it, and there was a lot of just very hockey type festivities. They were showing people, chugging drinks up on the jumbotron. Some guy, had a beer out of a shoe, and so I think hockey will do just fine in the state of Utah.
Now they're off on a 4-game road trip, but this is an odd road trip. You get to play all 3 New York teams, so they basically go sit in New York for almost a week. What should the expectations be for this 4-game trip?
Yeah, it's going to be a real test of how good this team actually is. Like you guys mentioned, Chicago's not the greatest team to measure yourself against. They'll probably be one of the bottom 5 teams in the league again this season, and so this one's going to be, this road trip's going to show us, how good is this Utah Hockey Club. When you look at it, the New York Islanders were a playoff team a season ago. I believe the New York Rangers made the Eastern Conference Final, and then New Jersey's a solid team too. So if you can go 2-1 out of these first 3 games in the New York area, and I think they play Anaheim on the tail end. If you can go 2-1, 2-2, or if you could somehow pull off 3-1, it would show us that this team is pretty legitimate. Obviously, it's early in the season, but yeah, it's going to be a true test. These are really good hockey teams. These are some big hockey towns, and so this is going to show us how legit is this squad. Last night, yeah, they look like one of the greatest teams in the NHL, but how do they measure up when it's a much better opponent, and it's, of course, on the road, which it's never an easy place to win, especially when you're going into places like Madison Square Garden.
Explain to us how much home ice matters.
It's a big deal. I mean, it's kind of hard to put it into words, but, a couple of the guys made mention of that last night after the game of how roarous and thunderous the crowd was and electric, and I think like any sport, a strong home crowd can really juice the players. It can lift them up in moments where they might be down for a minute or questioning themselves, and I think when you look at some of the most successful teams in the NHL, they're teams that have some of the best fan bases. Boston has been one of the best teams for a really long time, and it's a tough. TD Garden is a hard place to play hockey. You look at the Rangers. Places like Pittsburgh. Florida has really created a tough home advantage, and so 4 or 5 of the players, Cooley and Keller and Ingram, and then head coach Barry, they all said, hey, tonight was great, and if we can keep that up, it's really going to give us an advantage the rest of the season. And yeah, I would expect that it does.
I thought it was really evident in the first period that they were riding the energy of the crowd. But the way the second period started, Chicago, man, they had 3 great chances in 90 seconds. And that telltale, the puck hitting the metal is just so distinctive, right? And they had the one that ended up on top of the net as well. It was almost like they couldn't possibly sustain all that energy that they had in the first period.
Yeah, I think it was just a classic the energy was so palpable to start. I mean, just with all the pregame festivities, they made it snow inside the Delta Center. They had a really cool on ice projection. Lauri Markkanen comes out on skates. The Smiths, Ryan and Ashley dropped the puck. They introduced the players, and Keller comes out for the first time wearing the C. They dropped the puck for the first time. It was so and every time the team almost scored in the first period until they did, the place was just ready to pop until it finally did. And then I think Chicago, that kind of lessened as the first period came to a close, and Chicago came out strong. Although I'd also point out, I have never seen a puck refuse to go in the net so many times. Those 3 or 4 chances in short order to start the second period, I couldn't believe that those didn't end up in the back. The way that they just kind of spun out, or when that one, jumped up on top of the net, it was like, how did that not go in? But yeah, Chicago came out strong, and they did it in the third period. I mean, I'd say that through the first 2 periods, it really was mostly Utah, and then Chicago just brought so much energy in that third. It's almost like the momentum completely flipped on its head, and it was Chicago all the way until the last 2 minutes. Chicago was threatening to tie that game up 3-3 and potentially force overtime, but Utah forced Ingram had some great saves. Utah forced some turnovers and got the empty net, and then somehow scored a 5th goal. So the final score was not a full representation of how that game went, but it was a representation of how hard Utah worked and how they capitalized in key moments when Chicago just couldn't.
Well, Cole, thanks for joining us for a few minutes. We will talk to you again, and we'll see how they do on the road trip. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I'm headed out to New York right now, so can't wait to get out there and see what it's like.
Cole Bagley, Utah Hockey Club insider for The Zone. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. When we come back, everything you missed in this show, next.